Today's episode of the Quinn Spinn is brought to you from The Russell, a historic East Nashville church transformed into a one-of-a-kind boutique hotel. The Russell's mission is to give back to the Nashville community through their Rooms for Rooms program by donating a portion of each stay to local nonprofits who are helping those experiencing homelessness. And of course, we're coming out of winter, but it was a cold one out there, and it's important this time of year, any time of year, to help those in need. So good on the Russell for stepping up for the community. Visit russellnashville.com to book your experience today. And by the way, this place is gorgeous. It's got this cool retro feel, and it's got this amazing podcast studio. So you can come in whenever you're in town, record a couple episodes, and go on your merry way and explore the city. russellnashville.com to learn more. Hey now, and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of The Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, The Quinn. At least it's how I'm known here on the program. And at this point, really nowhere else. And I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. And you just heard Revel 9's All I've Become at the top of the show. That's been our opening theme song here at the Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014, and it will be until the very end of days. And I have a very special guest once again joining us today on the Quinn Spinn. I say once again, but it's his first time. I mean, very special guest, because we've had a lot of special guests lately. It's Austin Breckenridge, the executive director of the A&R Foundation, a nonprofit based in Austin, Texas, that helps independent artists, perhaps like you, structure their businesses. And they're actually bringing their Music Business Accelerator cohort to Nashville with us at Underground Music Collective for the first time. We begin in April. Applications are open now. And we're going to tell you on this episode how you can get involved and be a part of this. This is an opportunity to learn the fundamentals of structuring your business and then apply that to your music business. Another thing we're doing here at UMC that gives creators the power. So Austin joins me here on the show. I'll be back to close us out after the interview. All right, everybody. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I have the honor and privilege of being joined here by Austin Breckenridge, the executive director of the A&R Foundation, an Austin, Texas-based nonprofit that helps artists and creative professionals structure their business so they can move forward with consequence and help it not all seem so scary. So, Austin, first of all, thank you so much for jumping on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gerard, for having me. Super excited to chat with you and talk about some of the stuff we got going on together.
And a little bit of background here. So we actually met last year during South by Southwest when I was in town. And it was just a chance encounter that I had with Nicole, one of your artists who you manage, in an elevator coming down from an after party for this Buddy Holly Foundation benefit. I was trying to find the elevator. I saw she knew where it was. I'm like, hey, do you know how to get out of here? We talked for like 2-3 minutes, and she's like, you need to meet my friend Austin. So we meet up for coffee, spend 2.5 hours there, and here we are talking about some exciting stuff that we have cooking up. So really excited to chat about that. And so we'll start it off. I'll let you introduce yourself, and I'll do that by asking you the 3 standard questions. And those 3 questions are: who are you? What are your passions? And why on earth would you want to come on the Quinn Spinn?
Absolutely. Well, again, my name's Austin Breckenridge. I'm the current executive director of the A&R Foundation. I am also an artist manager here based in Austin, Texas. Passion-wise, it's a blend. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have strictly told you creativity and music. But over the years, I've developed quite a taste for a lot of things. So first and foremost, anything related to music, but also the business side of music. And as boring as it sounds, the financial side of things has grown on me over the last decade or so. And then on a personal note, huge baseball fan. Had the privilege of playing it growing up, was a pitcher. Unfortunately, didn't come out as a World Series pitcher on that one. Life had other plans, but still get to coach my two sons in baseball and keep active with that. And as far as coming on the show, I think really just a chance to connect and further, our relationship together and what we're working, and spread the word about the work that we're doing at the A&R Foundation. We're a nonprofit. We don't charge for 95% of the programs that we offer. And it's a pretty unique concept. So any chance we get to come talk music and music business with anyone is a fun time for us. So
And we're going to cover a lot here today. And I'm very excited to do that and very excited to offer what you're doing at the A&R Foundation to our community here in Nashville. Before we get to that, though, let's go back as far as you want to go and talk about your journey. Of course, you mentioned, creativity, music have always been at the forefront and you've diversified your interests. So take me through that journey and how you've landed on the current state of things where you lead the A&R Foundation and you are helping artists and adjacent creatives as well structure and manage and make sense of their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Music, I fell into music on accident. It was not initially part of my plan. Like I said, I'd played sports most of my life, particularly baseball. Managed to get an injury in high school, kind of going into my senior year, that ruined that set of plans. And I found myself in this awkward position of put all my eggs in one basket. What am I going to do with my life now, especially going into, a senior year? Was never really a huge academic fan, to be honest with you, at school. Just I was one of those where the normal schooling just didn't work with me. But I did start doing film and photography on the side. Had a marketing class I was taking, and to make a long story short, I fell into artist management and event production based on a photo shoot I was doing for a friend's band one day. We talked some shop about being able to sell these sets of albums that they'd just gotten in the realm of 1,000 because, back in our day when CDs were a thing, you buy them in bulk to get the discount. But no one really teaches you that if you sit on inventory and you don't sell it, it's just as bad as paying too much per unit for it. And so we had a conversation, went over some ideas, and a couple of weeks later, hey, we sold through a lot more of these CDs. What do you think about being our band manager? And I laughed him out of the room because I didn't know first thing about being a band manager, but I got this bum arm that's no good anymore, and I'm taking this class and I'm looking for something to do. You know what? Let's give it a shot. And literally that same night went back and Google University. What's a band manager do? First thing it said was you get them work, you find them work, and about a week later we had our first set of shows booked at a little hole in the wall bar in downtown San Jose, California called Johnny V's that I was not even old enough to get into. And that just led me into the world of music down that rabbit hole and booked shows. Thought we were doing a pretty good job. That led to a production company type deal. The production company eventually led to a record label that we ran for a number of years out there at the independent level. And we just learned really everything trial by fire. A bunch of young kids who thought they knew better, and started to realize that there were some gaps, as we started investing in artists and we started helping book tours and we tour managed and things like that. And it was never the drive, it was never the talent, it was never the want to. We quickly started to figure out it always came back to the money and the management of the money, but we didn't know what to do in that scenario at that time. And so fast forward a couple years later, 2015, started a family, bought a house shortly thereafter, and touring just wasn't an option anymore. So tried to make a graceful exit and go live the finance life. I got into banking, of all things, but I was good with money. I like talking to people, and my wife was like, go do something with those skills, and pushed me to do better than a typical retail job, if you will. And so that's really where I cut my teeth in finance. I started learning how money actually worked, and I was able to start connecting these dots back to these gaps that we found with the artists that we'd invested in and managed over the years that simply went out of business because there just wasn't enough money to make it happen anymore. People had to eat, they had to live, they had to pay bills, and that's hard to do. I think in general, add a music business on top of that, and music at the time that was more in the hard rock heavy metal scene. It's not the easiest genre to make money in. Um, it made it really difficult. And so I was privileged enough to do that for 5 or 6 years, worked my way up into, business banking and learned how business funding worked at the end of the day. And then I got kind of fed up with that too. I got enough of the corporate world, if you will. And I was like, this can be done better. But it really made me start to understand that the typical finance system isn't set up for the creative world, music or otherwise. It's just not. And that the creative world really doesn't understand the traditional finance world, and rightfully so. It's not set up for it. And so that transitioned me into nonprofit work. I was privileged enough to join a nonprofit, what they call CDFI, stands for Community Development Financial Institution here in Austin, and get into the education side of entrepreneurship. So rather than giving out the loans, I got to help people build their business plans, their financial projections, and put them in the best spot possible to get that funding, but more importantly, spend that money the right way so they can create longevity out of what they do. Um, Often joked it was like getting to be in a new startup every single day, only I wasn't playing with my own money, which is kind of nice. But you contribute to people's lives and the impact that you start to see through that type of work. And it got the wheels turning on how could we apply that to creative? Because even in the CDFI world, it's tough. It's tough. Music, as beautiful as it is, and it does generate money, really gets me down when people talk about how it doesn't make any money. It does. It's just fragmented in so many different ways that the people that create the actual product or the service just don't see enough of it by the time it gets to the level they need it to. Um, we thought there had to be a better way, so we went to the drawing board. Me and a couple of my co-founders, Jeremy and Robert, at a sushi restaurant we love in town, and started having the discussion around how do we make education available to people but also not give them an additional financial barrier because the education is out there. I'm not going to say it's not. And I love all the music schools and I love what they do, but it also costs. And we're already talking about a segment of the population that struggles financially just based on the fact that they're not paid what they're worth most of the time. And then you add, you don't know what you don't know, and it makes it really hard to get out of that not being paid what you're worth when you don't know how to determine what you're worth at the end of the day from a financial standpoint. And so it was actually my colleague Robert who came up with the idea. He said, "Well, what if we went nonprofit?" And I'll be honest, I about laughed him out of that room too. Not because I didn't think it was viable, not that I didn't think it was a great idea. I just never seen it done before. I've never seen a non like a getting that kind of clearance and getting that 501c3 status, which is really the catalyst for any nonprofit, is to get that designation from the IRS. And so we started down the journey of figuring out, well, how do we do this and still eat at the end of the day? Because we got to eat too, right? And that started a 2 year journey of just grassroots, getting down and dirty in the weeds and getting into an accelerator program ourselves out of Southern California called Mockingbird Incubator. Jessica and her team really taught us everything we need to know about starting, running, managing a nonprofit. Had some real come to Jesus talks about what it's like to start a business, but then also not be able to have ownership, quote unquote, in that business. As a nonprofit, we don't have owners. We have a board of directors that's amazing and help manages it. But at the end of the day, um, you know, we could effectively get voted out of our own thing that we built. And that's where you start to understand that service before self concept at the end of the day and community above all. Um, and so we spent 2 years building our board, drafting our internal procedures, all the boring stuff that we tend to teach, in our classes and things like that to make sure that we could be sustainable for the community that we're going to serve. Because I think one of the biggest disservices you can do to any underserved community at all, arts related or not, is come in, have wonderful programming, make huge impact, and then you yourself go under because of a lack of planning and controls. You've
Mm.
effectively potentially ruined that community,
Mm.
depending on how much of an impact you had. And so we didn't want to be that statistic. We want to make sure that we're here long after I'm gone or the board decides I'm not the right person to run it anymore, or whatever it may be that could happen in life, that our organization was here to serve that community long term. So, long-winded way of it's a long journey, it took 12 plus years and pulling from different skill sets between music and retail and touring and finance to really put all those pieces together to come up with the solution to the problem that we think we identified in our space. So,
Right on. And so the A&R Foundation, as it stands right now, offers a variety of programs to independent artists, independent creatives, and the vast majority of those programs, as you mentioned, are no cost to the person participating in the program. And one of those, of course, is the Music Business Accelerator, which we're very excited to offer here for the first time in Nashville in partnership with the A&R Foundation. So tell us a bit about the accelerator, how that got started in particular, and what people can expect from the process.
Yeah, of course. The MBA, it was such a fun program to put together and pilot. It originally was going to be the first program we wanted to lead with, but we had a hard time again finding something similar. And when you have a hard time finding something similar, especially in business, it's usually related to one of two things. It's either truly new and innovative, and therefore there's no statistical data to run off of because you're creating something brand new from scratch. You're writing the handbook, if you will, or someone's tried it before and it failed miserably. Luckily, we didn't see that other one. We saw similar stuff that tried to kind of get started up and didn't necessarily fail, but it's a hard space to be in because we're talking about trying to help the creative mind first and foremost look at things from a business perspective. We're talking bank accounts and business plans and goal setting and spreadsheets and things like most people hear that they're already falling asleep before I even got through that sentence, right? And so we decided we need to do a little more legwork to that. And so we actually started with our one-on-one coaching program here in Austin in the summer of 2024, just to get a feel if people would keep showing up. Could we get them to come back week after week, even if it was on a coaching basis? Could we get them to actually move the needle? Could they see results from the stuff that we feel everybody needed? But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to, are your clients actually, is the community benefiting? Are they thriving? Are they moving the needle with these skills and guidance that they're getting from us? And luckily, the answer was yes. We had a wonderful pilot program that had some amazing local economic impact here in Austin, and it gave us the confidence to go out and finish building and putting the resources into what became the Music Business Accelerator. That was really something from the get-go. That was a brainchild of mine, I suppose. I really wanted something that focused on the core basics of entrepreneurship because I think that's where financial literacy really starts. In banking, even in non-creative spaces, most of the businesses that struggled because they didn't have the core concepts. And I caught myself saying time and time again, if I just got them in like the planning phase, if I got them a couple years earlier, and I really was able to connect that back to even artists that we had signed in my record label days. Man, if I would have got them 3 years earlier, if I could just a little before life got a little too hard or debt got a little too big to tackle or whatever it was that was going on. And so I wanted a program that we could offer to people that were in, not necessarily that started in the garage yesterday phase, but maybe just started wanting to take the business seriously, where maybe the creative's been around for a decade, but really you're just starting the business today because that's the time to get them. That's the
Mhm.
time to put these things in place. That's the time to work through all, you know, the stress and the pain of going through running and growing a business. And so we designed that program where the first half is really 6 weeks of those fundamentals. And I think what's so wonderful about that part of the program is that those skills are translatable to any area of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
We're focusing on creative entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
I argue that's the more fun side of entrepreneurship. We have a lot more fun as creatives than I think standard business does. But you could take that and go do anything. If you're a performing musician and you tour half the year and you come home and you want to start a recording studio, those same skills you learned in the first 6 weeks are going to let you go run that recording studio. And then you can hire people to help run it when you're gone. And now you've got yourself not only your music performance income as an artist, you're contributing to the musical economy and the ecosystem by providing a space for other artists to come and hone their craft. And you're monetizing that in a fair way too. And so now you're kind of hedging your bet against the highs and lows that music experiences because you got something else that's also a business. And then the other half is like tightening up the skills. I think we all know about those, performance royalties. So publishing administration, copyrights, contracts, things like that. Um, it really is an A to Z kind of thing to help you run a more structured and hopefully sustainable long-term music business and just position yourself in a way to give yourself the best chance possible to thrive at something you love to do. Because when you can get to that point, excuse me, you really don't feel like you work a day in your life. And I think that's what everyone's looking to do. How can I do what I love to do, not feel like it's actual work, but then also how does it pay my mortgage and feed my family? Um, and the answer is structuring yourself appropriately and putting the systems in place to help manage that as such to get those results. And I think that's what this program does.
And I think that's where we really connected too, because it's all about giving creators the power and the autonomy over their own careers in an industry that historically, famously, notoriously has not given them that autonomy. It was never designed to give them that autonomy, right? And that's the thing. If you build your own sustainable business, right, you're good with or without ever signing that major label deal. You're good without, the streaming platforms ever paying you what you're worth, which frankly they never will. They got too many mouths to feed anyway, and they would go under if they did, right? So, how do you develop the business? How do you develop the structure, the revenue streams, the multiple ways for people to come in and participate in your creative ecosystem as an artist, as a creative professional? And to your point, a lot of them don't know where to begin. As a matter of fact, when you first pick up a guitar, start singing into a microphone, this is just something we talked about on last week's episode with Stefan von Bell. Like, you're not thinking about like, oh, I better get my LLC. Like, you're thinking I'm going to be a big star in 6 months. And then when you're not a big star in 6 months, you get humbled to either, you know, do something about the reasons why, or give up, right? Like, you're not starting out thinking like, I need to know all these things. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of times people get into pursuing art, pursuing their creative passions because they think it's going to be the absence of work. And to your point, maybe you get to that point one day, right? But first, you've got to do the work to understand the totality of the ecosystem you're trying to build. So if there are things, and there will inevitably be things for all of us that we personally don't want to handle or don't feel best suited to handle, we at least know well enough what good is so we can delegate that thing. And so this is really like soup to nuts. Like, this 12-week program like gives them that framework to operate from for years to come, right? And I think it's very powerful, and I'm really excited to bring it to our community here in Nashville and, across the UMC ecosystem. And so that's what we're doing. We're bringing it to Nashville for the first time. Of course, it started in Austin, and you're looking at expanding this to other markets now, including ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And even that came up quickly. When we started this thing, we really wanted to make sure, kind of going back to the 2 years we took to build everything out structure wise, we wanted to expand with intention, right? Because there is such a thing as growing yourself out of business, right? You may have the want or the defined need in a market, but if you don't have the systems and the staff to support that growth, it's going to fail, right? And so it it went quickly. I'm gonna be honest with you. We did the Austin pilot. We ended that, in August of last year and got out to the conference circuit. And as soon as the cat got out of the bag, the conversation started in everywhere that we were going, from Nashville to New Orleans to New York to, San Francisco and Seattle. And there's a lot of places that I think would obviously benefit from this program, but we wanted to think again strategically what made the most sense. And Nashville, I think, was always top of the list for the most part. Um, it was just that market has a very defined need, and I think it's full of all sorts of creatives, which is awesome. It's slightly, well, a little drastically different than Austin in the sense that there's industry infrastructure there too, right? And depending on how you look at that, some people count that as a bonus and some don't. As a place that claims it's live musical capital of the world, we lack a lot of it, industry infrastructure, which again has its pros and cons. It is a very independent first music community here. That being said, we don't get a lot of the corporate dollars, that some other places get, and whether you want to leverage those or not is a decision to each and every business that chooses to interact that way. But you got a lot of songwriters too, right? Nashville is known as a songwriter town, and I think that brings a whole other level of need as well, because we're talking about people a lot of times who aren't necessarily the recording artist, right? And that's not something too much in Austin we encounter. Usually, a lot of the folks I've been working with here are both, right? But you may have a scenario where you're just a songwriter and there's a recording artist that's just a recording. It's very common, right? Especially in specific genres. And that creates a whole different level, two different businesses we're talking about there. And so I think we're really excited to get into that market and see where we can provide help in multiple ways. Because again, like you had mentioned at the start of this, it's the ecosystem we're after. The core of that ecosystem is the performers and the songwriters and the actual creative process, the musicians themselves, right? But there's this whole ecosystem around them that also exists that, if also not supported with the right business acumen and financial literacy and planning skills, will collapse. COVID proved that at the end of the day. And so how do we get to those? And I think as we get into other markets that have more infrastructure, we'll find people that are not only musicians, but want to become managers, want to open venues, want to start where I started, starting an event production, right? Like shows don't happen without producers, event producers. They just don't. The largest festival in the world, all of them are event-based production companies. And so that's a business too, right? And so yes, we're definitely looking to take it as far as we can, but in a sustainable way. Going back to that whole, I would feel terrible, and so would my entire team, to enter a market, support that market, to just disappear on that market because we moved too quickly and we got too ambitious, right? Um, does my heart want to go global tomorrow? Yes. Yes, it does. Does our budget allow for that right now? No. Does my mind know better? Having had 15 plus years experience in this space? Yes, it does. And so it's we struggle with that too, even on the business end. It's kind of like writing that song that you have written a year and a half ago and hasn't put it out yet. And you got to wait 6 more months because you want to do the right marketing behind it. It's not quite the same. I'm not going to say, building the business is the same as going through the songwriting process, but in a lot of ways, there's still that same level of creativity. You're taking something, you're building it from scratch. You put so much time, money, and love into it, and you want to get it out to the world, and you want to put it out there. Sometimes you got to dial it back because there's a big difference between getting it out there and giving it its best chance and simply just dropping it on Spotify with the 100,000 other tracks that came out this week. Right. In business, same thing. We could go global tomorrow. We could. There's room to do it. We would burn out so fast that even our core audience in Austin, we wouldn't be able to help. And then we failed that community. What we literally started to help serve and fix and grow, we just left them out in the cold because we got too ambitious too quick. So um, the first step's Nashville, though. I think it makes a logical step. We've been able to partner with y'all as well, and I think that makes a big thing too. Like it's a team, it's a team effort, and it took a team to build this and make the pilot successful. It's going to take a team at a national and global level to allow it to grow appropriately to keep helping everyone we want to help.
So for those seeking to enroll in the program or just seeking to learn more, what would you say are some of the key indicators that someone will be successful going through the program? Like what traits are we looking for? What career level? Or I know you had mentioned, not necessarily the baby artist that just started in the garage yesterday, but like what should their mindset be and where should they be on the journey to really be able to grab hold of this and make the most of it?
I think, our application looks for a couple different things, but at the core of it, I think I can sum it up to two main categories. One, you want to make music your career. That's what you want to do. You don't want to do it just on the weekends. You don't want to do it at night. You don't want to have five different side jobs to make ends meet. And that might be the case initially, but the goal would be, I want music, this creative work that I do, to sustain me. That's what I want. When someone asks me what my day job is, I want to be like, I'm a musician. And that has weight and impact, or I own a venue, or I'm a manager, or any combination of those. Secondly, I think this is even the more important one. You got to be coachable. You got to be open-minded. We're going to be going over topics that for a lot of folks, myself included, when I first started with them, they're hard concepts. And that's not meant to scare people away. That's just the reality of when you want to do things on your own, you don't want to give up rights and you don't want to give up royalty streams and all these other things. You take all those things and you have to start doing them yourself. Well, to do that, you have to have a level of understanding of the money and how it flows and how to plan and how to be strategic and all these extra things that we can't simply just come into this program and be like, all I want to do is release music. If I'm not going to fault anybody for that. I think anyone that puts music out into the world to be judged, it takes a ton of courage to do that. We're not here to build the creative side. We're here to help with the business side, the side that helps you understand how those creative assets turn into dollars in your bank account and that's okay. And that you have a lot more power than you think in the process of doing that. But you got to be open-minded, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but you're also going to be in a room with people who have done it, who are doing it, who are going through the same things that you are. And I think there's just a lot of power in that, in realizing that one, it's not so isolated like everyone thinks. Someone has gone through your problem before, someone has come out the other end for the better, and someone has not come out the other end for better. And there's lessons to learn there. And I think it's important that you learn all of that. But to do that, you've got to be open minded. You got to be able to show up. You got to be able to put the work in, and we got to get out of our comfort zone a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so people can get out of their comfort zone. I'll take this one because there are two ways to join the Nashville cohort, which again, we're doing for the first time here this spring in conjunction with the A&R Foundation. Number one, be an underdog. This is available to our underdogs. We've been promoting it as an underdog exclusive. But number two, and we're announcing it on this episode, if you join the UMC mailing list, the application link is going to be going out to you as well. So if you're on our mailing list already, keep an eye on your emails the next couple of weeks before the March 13th deadline. It's the deadline we've set now. Keep an eye on that. And then, of course, if you want to become an underdog too, you can keep an eye on all underdog communications as well. This isn't going to be on the blog. It's not going to be on our socials. I mean, we'll make mention that this is what we're doing and you need to sign up for one of these two things to get involved, but you won't find the application link there. So join our mailing list, join the underdogs, do both. I'll love you forever. And then we're going to be letting people know mid-March whether they've been accepted, and we're going to be looking to roll out into the spring. So that's very exciting. And I know we've got some good candidates already, and looking for more to come.
Yeah, 100%. And if I can say anything, there's nothing to lose here, in doing that. We're talking about it's going out to the email list. You get an opportunity to come to a program that you're not being charged for, that consultants and managers and schools all over the globe charge thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars for some of these things. You're going to get access to it for free. And so really what you're doing is you're investing your time, and that is important. We don't get that back. So how we spend is extremely important. But you've spent so much time investing in your craft and potentially building an audience if you're that far along. What's it hurt to sacrifice a couple hours a week for a couple months to ensure that that can be around the rest of your life? Because I'm not going to sit here and be the person that promises you it's going to make you a millionaire or 100% successful. I can't promise you that. This industry fluctuates way too much, and there's too many external factors for anyone to promise you that. But what I can promise you is you're going to come out with a stronger skill set and an understanding of how to value yourself more efficiently so that you can go have those talks. You're a little more educated and have the financial literacy behind you to make key decisions that give you a better shot at attaining that, right? And there's no other shoe dropping here. It's through the partnership, and even in our core program, and like I mentioned, we don't charge for 95% of our programs, including this accelerator. You lose a couple hours a week, worst case scenario. And I promise you, there's not a single person that's come through this program so far, and we've got the surveys to prove it, the data behind it, that regrets taking that time to do it. And so it's a win-win all around. And like I said, in the best case scenario, you come out stronger with a few more friends, maybe a few new collaborations you weren't expecting. Great opportunity. So I encourage everyone to sign up. I also encourage everyone to become an underdog too. What you all have built over there, Gerard, is just amazing. And community is the other half of it, right? If for nothing else, the accountability piece. It's hard, y'all. It's hard when you're your own boss to keep yourself motivated. We worked for years, decades. I know I did, not wanting to work for someone else anymore. And it wasn't until I made the transition to artist management and the foundation full time that I really started to understand that, like, for as annoying as that all was, there was structure.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone to go to when I had questions on things. There was policy in place to go look up. And yes, there was someone there to ride my tail that I didn't like, but that was part of being accountable to something. When you're
Mm-hmm.
accountable to yourself, you got to build that community around you to help, because as humans, I think 9 times out of 10, like we're going to find a reason to kick that can down the road. And that's not a dig on anybody. I struggle with that too. But when you're doing it with other people, and it doesn't have to be in a mean way, it can simply be, hey, last time we talked, you were working on finishing that song and getting in the studio. Where are you at with that?
Mm-hmm.
And to
Yeah.
be able to be like, man, I didn't get to it this week. Well, let's talk about why. Like, maybe I can help you with that. Like, is something I could take off your plate? Or are you going through something in the songwriting process? Hey, I know this great meetup of songwriters who work through things like that. And so being able to be a part of that community, like, bar none, guys, Um, it's a small, even from a financial bit, that's a small price to pay, y'all, for that kind of access and community. I'll tell you that right now. So
Well, I appreciate the plug. And yeah, one thing you also miss when you leave corporate America is the check that shows up every 2 weeks. You don't get
yeah,
that out
yeah,
here, you
it's
know?
true. Very true.
And that's why this program's important because we're teaching you how to build the thing that's going to sustain you so you can keep doing the thing, right? And that's why, I'm recommending to anybody who gets their hands on this opportunity to take it, whether as an underdog, whether as somebody on a mailing list, like take this opportunity to sharpen your sword, to sharpen your skill set, and to build with other people because that's what it takes. None of us can do this alone. None of us can do this alone. And I know, like, when we start out, a lot of times, artists start out, all eyes on me. The focus is on me. That only gets you so far and it doesn't get you very far. Right. So be in community with other people as you learn these things because also it can be tough material for the creative mind, right? And it's better to be learning alongside people to be able to have those discussions to help make sense of the material too. Because again, we don't start our creative pursuits thinking about, we need to start an LLC and we need to learn banking. We think, oh man, this song's going to go viral and I'm going to have the life of my dreams. There are so many things that need to support that viral moment or whatever you're aiming for, to where if those things aren't in place, what goes up is going to come down. Guaranteed if you don't have that structure. So this is very important and a huge opportunity to help each and every one of you listening to this or watching this to build that structure for yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to put out there for folks is to your point, we talk about when we start, we're like, I want to put out this track, all's eyes on me kind of thing. I think really as you start to understand what it takes to run the business and the effect it has on all the people around you. And this is something that I really want to, I've been trying to drive home a lot to a lot of people over the last year or two that we've been doing this, is that the ripple effect from you having stronger business acumen and structuring things properly goes so far beyond the realms of even just music. Like, yes, in the immediate, you're going to be able to, your bandmates get paid, your engineer gets paid, your manager gets paid, the venue gets paid. Like, that's all in the immediate. But beyond that, I want you to think about if you've structured the business the right way, you're bringing in an audience. We'll take a show for an example. You're going to draw better. You draw better, puts more people in the venue. That creates opportunities for you to sell merch, which helps there too. It also gives the venue and potentially the bar and food an opportunity to sell a lot more too. They take that money and they go pay their bartenders and their server staff. That server staff goes home and guess what they do? They go and they spend their money at the grocery store. Now they're feeding their families. The money spent at the grocery store goes to pay the employees working at the grocery store. They come back out and they spend that money to come catch one of your shows or someone else's show. And so, because you took things more seriously, you put butts in seats, you sold tickets, you affected yourself, your bandmates, everyone in your inner circle, but you also helped the bartender feed his or her family. You help that grocery store employee go out and have a good time after busting their butt 50, 60 hours a week working at the grocery store. And so that is the power you have as a business at the end of the day. And so when you get to that level of thinking far beyond just the, I want to go have a good time on stage, and you should, that should be at the core of everything, but you have the ability to impact people's lives in such a positive way. And I think when you can start to think about it that way, most of us, like, we call that feel good capital in the nonprofit space, right? Like, we're notorious as a nonprofit industry, like the salaries are never going to match corporate salaries, right? At the end of the day, you intrinsically have to want to help people, but you can apply that same thought process to your for-profit music business. Like, there's so many different examples of global world tours that have affected everything. And so really coming through a program like this helps you reframe your mindset a little bit, that you have the power to change things at a really large economic level. And I don't think most artists think that, especially starting out. It's not the first thing you're going to think of. But even at ones that get to a more global, successful level, I don't think you understand the impact that you have in setting yourself up appropriately and running a business. You're going to be the reason people can feed their families, they can pay their mortgages, all that other stuff. The same way that those fans are going to be the reason that you can pay your mortgage and feed your family. And so, just to sweeten the pot a little bit there for people, if you want to be not only a successful, I think, musician and business person, but you want to provide actual economic impact, this is a program you need to be a part of at the end of the day.
Creators have the power, and this is a way for you to wield that power in a way that benefits a lot of other people. The ripple effect can be huge. Austin, thank you so much for being here, for spending time with me today, and taking us through the program. There is one question I ask every guest of the show before we sign off, and so it's a deep one, so get ready. That question is, if there's one lesson that you've learned on the entirety of your journey to this point so far, that you would go back and teach your younger self, just starting out as you were trying to figure out your path, what would that lesson be?
Oh, just one? You're making me think hard.
Putting you on the spot. Yeah.
You
Putting you on the
know,
spot.
whew, man, I got a couple decades worth of those. I think at the end of the day, understanding that it doesn't need to be done alone, and it shouldn't be. Um, I think I wasted a lot of time, a lot of money, and expensed a lot of relationships, especially in the early days, siloing and building things myself because I thought I had to, and that stemmed from various things. We went through all of it. It's the you get in business with the wrong person, or you didn't have a contract in place and it bites you in the backside. And so we, I think, inherently are going to go through things on our journeys that give us a bad taste in our mouth. And the immediate thing I think most of us do, especially myself in my early days, was resort to, well, I'm just going to do it myself. Because here's this proven track record of when I tried to let someone help, and I had to learn how to look inward and be like, what's the consistent theme here between all these things happening? Oh, maybe I'm not delegating the right way, or maybe I'm not building the partnerships that I need to build, or I'm trying to be the loudest, smartest person in the room when really if I'm in the room and I'm the loudest and smartest person, I'm in the wrong room. I need to be in the room where I'm uncomfortable, where other people are smarter than me, and I need to be quiet and I need to learn. And so surrounding myself with a team, I think it's kind of a two-parter. One, and then two, listen. Listen more than you talk. And that's a big thing coming from me. You know me a little over a year now, Gerard. I like to talk. And so I had to learn to just listen, and I had to learn to be more effective in how I communicated so that I didn't create my own problems at the end of the day. And so don't try and do it alone. That being said, don't take the person right off the street. Like, make sure you're vibing, you have a connection, that person, you can validate what they're talking about. But it really is. It comes back to community, at the end of the day. And my co-founder, Robert, he says all the time, hopefully I'm getting his phrase right. Like, as corny as it is, like, we can go far on our own, but we can go much further together. And I think adopting that policy in any business is 100% going to help you. So to my younger self, don't be so stubborn, and surround yourself and let people help that want to help at the end.
Going further together might end up being the title of this episode. We'll see when I listen back. But
There we go.
that's jumping out. Before I let you go, Austin, again, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we learn more about you and the A&R Foundation and all of your programs online?
Yeah, absolutely. By far, our website, it's a little unique. So it's the THEANR, so AN as in Nancy R foundation.org is going to be the primary place. You'll be able to access all our socials from there, but that is where we post everything. That's where the applications for our programs are. You can learn more about myself and my executive team and our background, as well as our wonderful board of directors that help guide us in these programming decisions and how we run the organization. So I'm going to encourage everyone to go there.
All right. Austin Breckenridge from the A&R Foundation joining us on the Quinn Spinn. I'll be back to wrap us up. All right, so there you have it. Austin Breckenridge from the A&R Foundation joining us here on the show. And as you heard on the episode, this program is open to underdogs as well as those on our mailing list. And you can apply through March 13th. Of course, that is next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday. So we're extending it a week and we're opening it up as long as you are subscribed to our mailing list. We will not be posting the link to apply on the blog. We will not be posting it on social media. The only two ways to get it are to sign up for our mailing list or become an underdog. So that is your assignment if you want to get in on the Music Business Accelerator. Thanks to Austin for coming on. This has been the Quinn Spinn, 2 N's and Quinn. 2 N's and Spin. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on the socials, of course, at Quinn Spinn Official on Instagram and the Quinn Spinn on Facebook. Underground Music Collective is our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. UMCworldwide.com. We'll take you everywhere you need to go. It's also at UMC Worldwide on most of the socials. Revel 9's all it become. Going to take us out like it brought us in. Grab some muffins on the way out.